be able to ensure that you find some level of activities that keep these guys busy. Elections kept them busy. That is just one aspect. It suggests that if we do more presence in the hinterlands, we might be able to get them a lot more busy and reduce the spate of attacks and the consequences of it that most civilians also suffer.
Now, let me ask you, there have been suggestions that before the election, that there was adequate deployment of security agents across the country just to make sure the elections were peaceful and that there were no attacks. And we saw massive deployments before the election, long before the election. In fact, we saw massive deployment of security agents. So in the build up to the election, just as you've pointed out, there was a reduction in attacks, even in kidnappings as well. But after the election, of course, we know that those deployments may not be there. Some of the security agencies may have been moved. Could that also be responsible for the resurgence we're seeing? And talking about kidnapping now, can we in any way link it to the Naira redesign policy of the central bank? Because that Naira redesign policy has, if you like, to a large extent has been suspended. So you have the old Naira note now has returned. Could we say that that's also a possibility? Because some people have argued that the new Naira redesign policy may have checked the spate of kidnappings. I mean, knowing that the kidnappers now knowing that they were not going to get ransom payment, that it wasn't going to be easy for them to get ransom payments. I'm just wondering, could all of these reasons be why we had a reduction and now we're having a resurgence?
Yeah, I mean, the Naira redesign was basically targeted at achieving two purposes. One is actually security, and the second is economy. The security component was to be able to reduce the level and the layers of ransom payments, which had gone into over ₦1 trillion. If you do a cumulative analysis, that for me was a very huge cutoff, and that also informed why we noticed that level of reduction. If you recall that just a week before the deadline for the swap, we noticed that even members of Jamaat Nasrul Islam, that is the Boko Haram group, were actually on Borno, Maiduguri Damaturu Highway, sharing what they had left in their own camps to travelers, which suggests to them very clearly that it was and that even if you dispense energy and resources to be able to acquire platforms and then, of course, carry out an attack, that family members may not be able to source for resources to be able to bail you out. I think this, for me, is a big lesson that we must learn, that cashless policy, to a large extent, will help us cut down the level of insecurity that we have, because obviously those who are perpetrators would not first be able to use liquid cash to be able to procure and purchase, because for you to buy in the black market, you cannot use transfer or banking system to do that. You need to use cash to be able to make those kind of transactions. But unfortunately, that couldn't happen. And I think that for me is a big win. Secondly, is the fact that victims and their families are not able to access same cash to be able to pay. So unfortunately, government didn't become very circumspect and very deliberate and very resilient. There was no plan adequately ab initio to be able to manage the transition of the cash in itself, and that in itself created a new layer of problem. If that issue was thoroughly managed and adequately provided for, I can guarantee you that it was going to be the best decision that the country would have ever taken, because we would have cut off quite a lot of logistics and cut down on a number of supplies. But we couldn't sustain it because there was no adequate strategic thinking behind it. and then finally we went back to status quo, and that suggests the reason why we now have this resurgence. So I think there's a need to look at this again, and those who are policy watchers should pay a lot of attention to the level and the number and the amount of naira in circulation, particularly in the informal transaction, that would be able to contain, prevent, and deter situations like this. And the economy part of it is to improve livelihood, because to be very honest, an angry man is a hungry man is an angry man. If you improve economy, opportunities are there that the push factors will be reduced to a large extent, and people will not be able to get recruited into terrorist groups. In this country at the time, we were all evident and witnesses to how Boko Haram group were paying as much as $3,000 to recruit members into the organization because of the level of poverty, because of the absence of education, and the weakness in the economic value chain. A lot of people subscribed, and people actually were recruited. So these are the kinds of conversation and technicalities and attention that this new government must pay a lot of attention to. Yes, we will suffer the pain, but the gains will be enormous, and it is only a matter of time that we will be able to weather the storm and then move on as a country, and would have been able to save a lot of lives and property. But the fact is that we cannot continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. We must find a way to change the narrative, and the best way to change the narrative is to use policies and programs of government into doing so.
Just before I let you go, if you were to set a security agenda for the incoming government, what would that agenda be?
The first agenda for the government is first to do a complete overhaul or reform of the security sector reform, and see how they can actually begin to look at personnel, institutions, platforms, and engage them in terms of funding. Because if you do all of this critical analysis around this tripod, you will realize that those are the areas where we need to deal with. Personnel have been culpable severally in terms of becoming moles and giving away information to terrorist groups and to bandits, and collaborating because of the inability for them to meet their own basic needs. So we have some kind of challenge with personnel. That is one. We have poor funding that is not making them adequately to be able to manage the situation. And most of these guys know that our security men are very vulnerable. And because they know that they are vulnerable, they offer them resources, offer them cash to be able to buy their conscience. And of course, it is in the open space that we have had cases of personnel who have switch sides just because they needed to make some immediate end meets. We need to strengthen our institutions. We need to procure platforms. And I must thank the outgoing regime. One of the best regimes so far in recent time, I must say in the last 1 year, we have been able to get some very beautiful and delicious platform for the Nigerian Army and the Air Force particularly. Beautiful Super Tucano. We have these attack choppers, not Augustas. And then we have some very delicious tanks, MRAPs, and we have Shika 40 rounds, and very beautiful platforms that the Nigerian Armed Forces have procured. And for me, is maintenance and sustaining them. And secondly, is ensuring that we have personnel whose welfare and post-traumatic stress disorders are also adequately attended to. We must ensure that it is a holistic approach to reforms that we put on the table, not doing a sectional reform. And the new administration have a huge responsibility to doing so in a way of showing strength. Because if you negotiate from the point of strength, those who are perpetrators and taking arms against the state will respect you. But if you are negotiating on the point of weakness, then it makes you very vulnerable. And I do not want the new administration to engage from the position of weakness, because it would then mean that those who are in the forest will be dictating the terms, and the state in itself is the only state that has the monopoly of violence, and they must actually demonstrate that and bring it to bear.
Salahuddin Hashim, counterterrorism expert, thank you very much for joining us on the program, and thank you for your time. We'll take a short break, but when we come back, Nigeria's debt servicing in focus. The World Bank says Nigeria is emptying its treasury in servicing its debt. Stay with us, don't go away.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. Let's discuss the economy now. Nigeria is in a more fragile position than before the late 2021 global oil price boom. That's according to the World Bank. In its new report, the global financial institutions revealed that Nigeria has spent nearly all the revenues it earned in 2022 servicing its debts, adding that the low revenue and rising interest rate payments now have left Africa's largest economy with almost no money after paying interest on debt. This has led to persistent fiscal deficits that are partly funded with costly central bank loans and a rising public debt stock to gross domestic product ratio of 38%, just below the 40% self-imposed limit set by the government. Now, in the absence of a significant boost in oil revenues and tax reforms, the World Bank forecasts Nigeria's fiscal deficit will remain above 5% of GDP until 2025. The organization says one important step the government can take to ease fiscal pressure is to scrap the expensive and controversial petrol subsidy, which cost 2.3% of GDP in 2022, up from 0.7% the year prior. The government has set June this year as the date for the complete removal of subsidy. Now, whether it will be able to brave all the odds and likely political backlash and remove the subsidy remains to be seen. Meanwhile, President-elect Bola Tinubu, who will take over from outgoing President Muhammadu Buhari on May the 29th, has pledged to end the subsidy that the Finance Ministry expects to drain about $7.2 billion from the state finances in the first 6 months of this year. Joining me now to take a deeper look at this issue, I have financial expert Obin Iruakba, who joins us, of course, from Abuja. Also joining us from Port Harcourt is Akintunde Ogunshola, who's an economist. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Obin. Quite a grim picture there painted by the World Bank, but not in any way surprising, because when you look at the debt profile of the country, truth is that we've been spending so much on debt servicing, but now getting to the level of not being able, I mean, after servicing the debt, you're left with nothing, then that's something serious, and it shows that the incoming government will definitely face a struggle.
I strongly believe that the incoming government will face a struggle in the first few months. What do you expect? If you have over 96% of your revenue expended in debt servicing, and the present government is thinking about removing oil subsidy, you're going to have a bit of restiveness within the policy, because Labour, for instance, Pengasson has already threatened that she would not support the removal of subsidy. So the incoming government would really need to sit down and do 3 things. Stakeholders mapping. Who are the stakeholders in Project Nigeria? Civil society, civil servants, manufacturers, the people in the oil and gas, and just about everyone, to understand why it may be necessary to remove the subsidy. You're looking at the budget of 2023 that reads expected income borrowing. Time borrowing happened. You're going to have 77 trillion by the end of this budget cycle. So this present government has her work cut out for her. And what I recommend is this government should prepare to have an engagement with just about anybody that needs to be engaged with. The second thing is stakeholders engagement. And then the third one thing is stakeholders management. My initial submission is that.
But let me ask you, if the government doesn't take away the subsidy, how is it going to get, just how is it going to survive in the first place?
Say that again, if the government does not...
That if the government does not take away the subsidy, and in any case, The current government now had planned that it was going to go by probably May before it leaves office, but obviously with the way things are going, it appears it's going to shift it to the new government. But the question is, if you do not remove the subsidy, I'm just wondering how the government would, how will the country be able to cope?
Well, maybe the incoming government will continue borrowing like this current government that has borrowed so much. But that's just on a lighter note. I believe that we just have to get the people to line up behind the government before you remove the subsidy. I am a proponent of removal of subsidy. We cannot sustain 6 trillion every year. And then there is a suspicion that this so-called subsidy is not transparent. There's so much corruption suspected. And if you consider the porous borders that we have, so you export cheap crude and you import, and then remember that you also have bridging costs from the port into the hinterlands. If you look at Petroleum Equalization Fund that manages the issue of bridging for these oil marketers. Now, BEV is part of the midstream right now. Now, so you're dealing with a lot of corruption, and then by the time you remove subsidy, you're going to have oil per liter sell at about 750 naira per liter. And if it goes to 1,000 naira per liter, the people in the civil servants, the average person on the streets is going to go up in arms. So I believe that the very first thing to do is to engage the people and explain to them that what we actually call subsidy is actually not subsidy. It's hurting the economy. Now, it's only in Abuja and about maybe Lagos and 1 or 2 other cities that you sell at 195 naira per liter. Outside here, I was in Rivers State about 2 months ago. It sold at 320 naira per liter. So it's neither here nor there. A few individuals are the ones benefiting from what is called subsidy. There's corruption. We do not even know how many liters we consume per day. So we need to investigate actually what we call subsidy and explain to the people that outside Abuja and Lagos, and probably maybe Enugu, almost every other city sells at over 280 naira per liter. So who is losing, who is winning? And if you look at diesel, diesel sales now is open to the it's exposed to open market, control of the open market. It sells at over 800 naira per liter. And then manufacturing is still going on. As much as it hurts manufacturers, but they're still finding a way to produce and sell and make some form of profit. So we need to explain these issues around the PMS.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you. Let me go to Akintunde Ogunshola now. Akintunde, beyond the issue of subsidy, which of course the World Bank has actually concentrated on for a very long time now. I mean, even before things got this worse, the World Bank had been advocating the removal of subsidy. But the question is, look, beyond the issue of subsidy, what else can the federal government or can the government do in terms of shoring up government revenue? Because the truth is that the revenue is just not there, and subsidies certainly not the only means of saving revenue for the government. What else do you think we need to do at this time, especially when you consider the fact that, look, what we are generating now, as the World Bank clearly stated, we're spending in paying in servicing our debts?
Revenue is not yet there, but I think compared with the previous period, 2020, 2021, 2022, I believe our revenue has started increasing. And that's why the IMF just also recently projected that Nigeria economy is growing by 3.2% in 2023, whereas at the end of 2022, it was projected by 2.8%. One thing that has made the IMF to also project a growth in our economy in 2020 is that our oil sales now has gone up, it has improved. Nigeria has been producing per day constantly at 1.6 to 1.7 million barrels per day, and the price has also been up. So it's expected that Nigeria's revenue is also going to go up. That's why the IMF projected that Nigeria's economy will grow by 3.2% in 2023. And apart from relying on oil, we've been talking about diversification of the economy. I think what the incoming government needs to, go to the drawing table for is to also look into how to diversify the economy, look at how to improve the aviation sector. This government promised to give us Nigeria Air before they leave government in May, but it's looking like it's not going to be possible because you just have like 1 month to go. So the incoming government can take over the project, develop the aviation sector, develop the service sector, so that the revenue of the country is going to be boosted and the economy of the country is going to be diversified. If they don't do that, I think the incoming government will still run into revenue shortages and continue to battle with the problems of the low revenue for government. And that's the problem that we have. So if the incoming government can look at how to diversify the economy in other sectors, agriculture is there, we need to ensure food security. The services sector is there, the aviation sector is there. All other sectors need to also be looked into, apart from the oil sector, whereas the oil sector is actually improving because I think from 2023, the oil thieves has actually relented and we are actually growing in that aspect. Remember, the tax aspect is the fiscal policy aspect of the economy, while the monetary aspect is also going. If both the fiscal policy is being tightened and the monetary aspect is also tightened, I think the citizens will not find it funny because we are in the era of tightening of economy, interest rates is high. The CBN is continuing to tighten the economy because of high inflation. We're experiencing continuous and steady rise in inflation. So if the government on its fiscal policy path decide to also increase taxes again, I think it's going to be choking for our economy. So for now, it is advisable that we still keep our tax system the way it is for now, pending when the virus of this inflation is a worldwide virus, inflation going up, not only in Africa, even the developed countries are also experiencing the same. So if government increase tax for now, I think it's going to be too choking, but we still need to continue to monitor and ensure that we bring more people into the tax net. That's one way that we can increase our revenue. Let the FIRS continue to do monitoring of taxpayers, ensure that they are paying accurately, and also ensure that those that are not yet captured in the tax net are brought into the tax net. Then our revenue will go up rather than increasing tax rates. It's not the time to actually increase tax rate because we're experiencing high inflation.
Can I get your thoughts on this issue of tax reform, Obinaya? What do you think?
Talking about tax reforms, if you look at the finance bill, we've had to move from 5% to 7.5% of VAT.
Which is still low.
Which is still low compared to other nations. However, you also need to consider the people you're taxing. I like the fact that my co-discussant has mentioned the issue of insecurity, the issue of non-diversification of the economy.
Well, it appears we're having a serious challenge now with connecting to Obinaya, but let me come to you, Akintunde. What do you think? How challenging do you think it will be for the incoming government? How challenging do you think it will be to raise the revenue profile of government now? And do you have any fear that if some drastic action is not taken, we might begin to default default in some of our loans, not being able to pay back?
Yes, it's going to be quite challenging, and it's not going to be easy for them because our debt profile continues to rise. There is no doubt this government has borrowed far beyond where they actually met the debt profile when they came into government in 2015. But it is still not above the limit of borrowing. That's why the World Bank and the IMF is still giving them this loan. But the incoming government is going to be faced with the challenge of paying back this debt and also increasing revenue of the government. The challenge that they have, the way forward for them to resolve this challenge is to look at the other sectors, just like as I was emphasizing. There are so many other sectors in this country that are lying fallow, that we still have revenue leakages. They need to block all the loopholes of our revenue, ensure that our raw materials are nested and being monitored appropriately. Like I'm talking about the mining sector, where we have gold, we have other mineral resources. That mining, we have so much illegal miners in the country. The incoming government need to look into that sector. And just like I said, they also need to look into the aviation sector. Expanding this non-oil sector will also bring about job creation for the teeming youth that actually voted them into power. And that's the way to go for the incoming government. Notwithstanding that the oil path, we are actually on the path of growth. and the oil thieves have been chased away from the fields. Now our oil production is secured. I think, and with the removal of subsidy and the incoming of Dangote refineries, and also ensuring they also need to take a decision as to what happens to the remaining 4 refineries we have in Nigeria to ensure that they are also producing in order to compete with the Dangote refineries. And I think they are going to be starting on a good note and a good path instead of rather than where this government started in 2015, where the refineries was not working, the oil subsidy was increasing, and so on. It's going to be challenging, but I think it's surmountable for them if they take the right decisions.
All right. Unfortunately, we couldn't reconnect with Obinaya Uruakba, and I think that's just where we have to leave it. Thank you very much, Akintunde Ogunshola, economist. Thank you very much for coming on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you so very much. Well, that's how much we can take on the program this week. Unfortunately, we've not been able to reconnect with Obinaya Uruakba, but well, we hope to do so some other time. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
However, well, that is just one aspect of our security. Now, when you move to the North Central, you move to the Northwest, where we're having banditry, kidnapping, and other issues. Unfortunately, the picture is not as good as what we have in the Northeast. Despite all the efforts, even now as I'm talking to you on this date and at this time, we can say there are areas that bandits are operating with abandon. So definitely that is an area that the Okonkome regime, while maintaining, you know, the momentum in the Northeast, because even that one is not over, but we agree there is success. But in the Northwest and the North Central, where we're having, you know, the problem of bandits and other kidnappers and other groups, unfortunately, that is an area that remains very so in our political terrain. The bandits are still operating. The troops are not able to counter the bandits to the level that they will make them inoperative or stop them from kidnapping people and holding ground. So this is one area that we cannot say there is success. If you move to the south of the country, where we have the secessionist tendencies, whether you say IPOB, whether you say ESN, and all the other armed groups there, again there we can say the government has tried, even though again the situation is still volatile and the incoming government, you know, has to look into it. So these are the issues as far as operations are concerned. I move to the next aspect. The next aspect is in terms of capacity building. Capacity building is in terms of equipment. I will put equipment, I will put manpower increase and the rest. Let me start with manpower. Everybody, people who know about security or who don't know about security agree on one thing. They are unanimous about one thing. We need more security forces, whether it is military, whether it is police. Unfortunately, again, since the Buhari administration, tentative, you know, steps have been taken to increase the number, but the increase in number is not commensurate with what is needed on the ground. So the Buhari It's not enough. It's not enough. Given Nigeria's size, given Nigerian size in the territory, given our population, given internal security challenges, given external factors, what do I mean by external factors? Whether we like it or not, that's saying that Nigeria is a giant of Africa and is expected to play a role in West Africa, in the world in terms of peacekeeping. When you look at the requirements that you need to fight both internal threats and also to contribute to international security, definitely the numbers is not enough. And the numbers, I acknowledge, that's why I said tentative steps. I acknowledge the increase in recruitment, but we are nowhere near where we need to be. There was an interview with the Minister of Defense, I think no more than 2-3 months back. He gave the number of Nigerian Armed Forces personnel at 223,000, if I remember. He gave 223,000. When you look at Nigeria's territorial size, our population, the role we want to play in Africa, in West Africa, definitely that number is not enough. The police, we have a UN standard of what proportion of policemen to population is supposed to be. We are not there yet. So I acknowledge, and I must acknowledge, that effort has been, but I call them tentative steps. The next regime that is coming must work. And I'm happy, during the presidential campaign, both the winners and the losers all spoke about one thing. I am going to increase security personnel. So there is unanimity on that. But what we didn't do and what we need to do now is to find out where are we now. That is, how many do we really have? And what is the optimal size of the armed forces of Nigeria? What is the optimal size of the Nigerian police that we should be aiming at? I didn't hear anybody saying that, but like I said, so many factors will come into it. Economy, geography, geopolitics, and everything. I emphasize economy, because even if a president wants to increase the number of soldiers, the number of military personnel or soldiers, we know that the work of government is not only security. He will have to look money for health. He has to look for money for education and other sectors. So definitely it's a balancing act. What do I need? It is called the guns versus butter debate. How much do I spend on the military before I don't have money for education or I don't have money for health? And again, this is why I raise the problem. Again, I am among the first to say, when you look at the past civilian regimes, probably naira for naira, dollar for dollar, there is no regime that spent as much money as the Buhari administration on security. But having said that, I have a problem. Sometimes in defense, even like in family budget, it is not actually the amount of money that you spend that is important. What is important is on what did you spend the money. So in that aspect, honest, I think we need an improvement. In terms of equipment, yes, again, the Buhari administration has purchased a lot of equipment for the Army, for the Air Force, for the Navy. However, as an expert, when I look at what has been purchased, I first identify what is the gap. The truth is that, and I'm not blaming the Buhari administration,
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, Dissect it so that you can understand it. Use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Glad to have you join me on the program. I am Mary Kanu. Now, in what many might describe as a drama-filled supplementary election in Adamawa State, Governor Amadou Fintiri has been announced winner of the April 15 supplementary governorship elections exactly 1 month after the March 18 polls. Recall that Adamawa State resident electoral commissioner Hudu Yunusa Ari had illegally declared Aishatu Dahiru winner after the governorship supplementary election held on Sunday. However, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) swiftly denounced the purported declaration and suspended the collation of results of the supplementary election. In the rerun, Fintiri, the incumbent governor and candidate of the People's Democratic Party, polled 9,337 votes, besting Senator Aishatu of the All Progressives Congress, who scored 6,513 votes. At the end of the entire exercise, the returning officer, Mele Lamido, declared Fintiri winner with 430,861 votes over Binani's 396,788 votes. Binani, the candidate of the APC, sought to become the first woman to be elected state governor in Nigeria. Now, to speak more on the recent development in Adamawa State, political affairs analyst Charles Ideho joins me now. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, all through the elections, Nigerians watched as various levels of political drama unfolded in Adamawa State. But generally, what are your thoughts on the governorship elections in the state?
Okay, well, let me say that I personally say we can give a self-belief Because when you look at the 36-state structure of Nigeria plus Abuja, we had one state that was almost holding us to ransom. Other elections have been concluded on the 18th of March 2023, and they moved on. Winners have emerged, and they are already setting up committees on how to hand over from one governor to another. In the case of states that are having a change of baton, but you now have Adamawa that was almost holding us to ransom. So now that the elections have been declared conclusive, and then the winners are in line with the mandate of people have been announced, so we can now move on with other things. Now that a winner has a winner that is truly reflective of the people's mandate in Adamawa State, Mary.
All right now, but then again, how would you assess INEC's handling of the whole situation in the state? Because we saw, that the March 18 election was inconclusive, which then led to the supplementary elections. And, we also saw the premature announcement of Binani as winner. So how would you rate INEC's performance in the state?
Well, first, I will look at INEC sectorally. This is why it is very important for us to consider the process of recruitment. I mean, if you recruit very wrong people into places of that you are going to be requiring them to work above board, then this is what you get. So remember that time that President Muhammadu Buhari, he now brought out a list of appointees, people who are going to be state reps and all that. Amongst them was Loretta Onoche, who we know is very fiercely supporting of this government. She once held a position as one of the spokespersons for the president. So imagine someone like that, being in government, being among the umpire. It's the same thing you have with the Yunusari. Yunusari, we understand, is very close to the Attorney General of Federation, of course, who you also know is very partisan. So it is whatever we have in Adamawa is a reflection of the poor, what I call the poor, how you get the recruitment into that position of state reps. So when you put in somebody who is fiercely partisan for one party, you expect him to be above board. It's not possible. So what I feel is that INEC, for us to have an INEC that is going to be above board, where you have to cleanse the unjust table, when we need to go back and recalibrate the structure called INEC, so that we're able to have people who do not have maybe party affiliations, who do not have party leanings to all these parties, whether it's APC, whether it's PDP, whether it's Labour Party. It is only then we can have people who can discharge their duty very effectively without any fear. We can discharge their duty without any pecuniary gains and all that. But the way it is now, there are people within INEC, outside Professor Mahmoud, who are very, very partisan. And one of them we have seen in Barrister Hudu Yunusa, who, of course, he betrayed everything that he had for the party APC. He betrayed everything, and even went further by even disgracing even himself as a lawyer. I mean, lawyers are supposed to be above board. When a lawyer begins to now do things that are improper, then you now see where we are headed as a people in this country. Maybe.
I know you're talking about Yunusa Ari, that's the suspended resident electoral commissioner of Adamawa State, but you also said he announcing the illegal announcement he was not constitutionally empowered to do so, but he did it all the same. So do you think there was a preset agenda to the action?
Well, Mary, I think that obviously there was somebody who may have been beating the drum. You understand? Because I do not think that this Yunusa Ari could have acted alone. Number one, he was accompanied to that center by the state commissioner for police, someone as highly placed as a commissioner of police in the state. He was accompanied them, and then you look at what happened. NTA, that is a government-owned agency, also, gave them that platform. And then one of the spokespersons of the president-elect, the Minister of State for Labour, what's his name, Piano. Piano also rose to town to also congratulate him. That's a Binani. So it tells you that there are people who were beating the drum for Yunus Ari. Ari, I suppose we know. I mean, wasn't acting alone. Because he was acting alone, you now see heads rolling. You understand what I'm saying? But as we speak, I still do believe that Ari acted a script that was badly scripted. That's exactly why he came out the way he came out there, Mary.
Well, you know, Binani was looking to emerge as the first female governor, you know, in the country, and many were hopeful that history will be made. But could her gender have worked against her in the race to become governor?
Well, if she has emerged as the first female governor in Nigeria, that is duly elected. Don't forget that in Anambra, when Peter Obi was impeached, he deputy that time, I think it's Dame Etiaba, I've forgotten her first name. I think that Etiaba actually took the mantle in Obi's step until court restated Obi. And then in the history of Nigeria, Etiaba is never to be remembered as someone who ever held that position. That's in the history. But you see, if you must emerge and to hold that history, to say you are the very first female duly elected governor in Nigeria, it has to be something that will follow due process. Not victory that is snatched through the back door. Not victory that is procured, using all means foul. That's exactly what I say. But again, even as I have the advantage. We also have a female president in this country. But if that female president or female governor must emerge, they have to pass through ways that are proper, means that are proper, so that we can hold our head high among the community of nations.
Now, it would appear that supplementary elections are gradually becoming the norm during every election cycle in Nigeria. So what do you think needs to be done for us to get it right the first time and maybe avoid all the hassles and even expenses that come with supplementary elections?
Well, there are factors responsible. Number one factor is the way that candidates emerge amongst, when you look at the parties that are the parties that are flying their flags, a candidate wants to fly a flag. Look at their primaries. The primaries usually flawed. Look at what happened in Kogi recently, where they said the governor just did everything possible within his power to make sure that whether it's his husband or his nephew emerged as the party flag bearer for APC. Of course, Senator Smart Adeyemi has been crying foul that that process was marred with all manner of irregularities and then that primaries never held. So it goes across all the states in the country. When you have a process that is fraught with irregularities, this is what you have, so that it's not always properly concluded. But if you also look at the issue of winner takes all that we have. Everybody, if you are going for election, you want to win. You want to kill people who are going to be vying for you. Against you. So that's exactly what we need to do. That for us to have an election to be truly representative of the people's mandate or the will of the people, we need to ensure that people who emerge as flag bearers are those ones who the party see fit to indeed, have that power to command the people's respect. But when you pass people through the back doors and then you find this kind of, there's no way to not go into some of this inconclusiveness, and then you now have a supplementary parties, supplementary election. Not only that, you also have the cost. These days, you find that over the years, we have lost, the electorate, we have lost all the powers to elect our leaders. When we elect our leaders, people will say, oh, no, don't worry. Whatever happens, you go to court. So the court has now taken over. They have usurped the power of the electorate to now choose who govern Nigeria. Of course, that's not something that we must applaud at all. We must find a way to get this thing out of our body politics.
All right, now, political affairs analyst Charles Idaho, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
I will take a break now, but when we return, the program will continue. To stay with us. All right, welcome back. Nigerians began a new week with members of aviation unions embarking on a two-day warning strike, leaving passengers stranded in airports. The unions comprise the National Union of Air Transport Employees, Air Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, the National Association of Aircraft Pilots and Engineers, and the Association of Nigerian Aviation Professionals. The union workers had earlier, in a notice to their members across airports in the country and aviation agencies, issued a two-day warning strike to press home their demands over non-implementation of condition of service and other welfare-related issues in the next 7 days. The unionists, at the end of their two-day warning strike, have vowed to shut down the airspace to jolt the attention of the current administration. Well, for more insight into the industrial action and demands of the aviation union workers, the General Secretary of the Air Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Francis Akinjole, joins me now. It's good to have you join me. Now, the Aviation Ministry has said, that the strike was unnecessary and that discussions could only be done in an atmosphere of peace and mutual respect. Why then did the union decide to embark on the two-day warning strike?
Well, as we have been informing the general public, we have been on this for years now. We are also alive to the fact that strike is something that is not necessary in the aviation sector if it can be avoided. So we've always presented ourselves for discussion with management and even the ministry. But what have we gotten from those discussions? Nothing. They continue playing us. So it's not that we are not open for discussion. Like I did inform yesterday, we were even involved in a discussion with them, the ministry, via Zoom on Sunday, because we couldn't make it to the Abuja that they invited us to. So we had meeting with them, and at the meeting, it was obvious that the ministry itself is overwhelmed because it appears the whole issue is not even in their hands, but they are the midwife. They are the midwife. This is principally in the hands of the National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission and the Office of the Head of Service. But we have nothing to do with them directly. It is through the ministry.
Well, Nigeria is still dealing with, the issues of airlines trapped funds, increase in price of jet fuel and airfares, and now, the strike. All of these affect Nigerians and the economy, seeing that the aviation sector also adds billions of naira to the country's GDP. Were all of these put into consideration by the unions before embarking on the strike?
Yes, like I did say moments ago, we know that strike should never be the first option. It's always the last option. It is when we are pushed to the wall. Consider the plight of those employees that are working in the aviation industry. Are they happy? Disgruntled aviator is an accident in the making. In the waiting rather. Imagine a cleaner, if is not satisfied, do you know that it can induce an accident? These are some of the things we should be conversant with. These people have been working for years without valid conditions of service, and they have been managing. And when we appeal to the authority to do the needful, they will continue telling you to be patient. And we have been patient, but everybody has, nobody's elasticity of patience is limitless. That is the situation we find ourselves now.
All right. One of the demands of the unions is that the federal government should not demolish the offices of some of the aviation agencies in Lagos. It has since asked to relocate to Abuja. Now, can you please shed more light on why the union is against this demolition?
Okay, you just said now that the headquarters have relocated to Abuja. Does that signify that there is no activity of that headquarters being experienced in Lagos. Even if the headquarters are in Abuja, won't there be regional offices? Where are they going to operate from? I did say days back that headquarters of AIB in Lagos was demolished 1 year ago. We still have members that are in Lagos. They are just ask them to come home. Their activities are in the airport and they have no office in the airport. So all this, it doesn't make any reasonable sense to us. We are not saying they shouldn't demolish, but there should be adequate preparation for this. Even those that are taken to Abuja, are there offices in Abuja for them? The answer is no. No corporate headquarters. Look at Nama. They rented apartments from the Nigerian Chambers of Commerce along the airport road there in Abuja. There's no preparation for all this. And come to think of it, how many days does this administration have left? Even if they are going to re-employ the minister, can't they exercise some patience?
Right. Now that the 2-day warning strike has ended, what is the next step going forward?
Yes, we did inform yesterday that there was to be a meeting of the salaries and wages with the agencies and management. They went for the meeting. We haven't gotten full details of the outcome of the meeting, but I was informed that the meeting was inconclusive. It has been adjourned to the 10th of next month. We are going to go back to our structures. We will review it. If there is any prospect of having our demands redressed, or not before then, we will take a position. And remember, that is just one leg of the demands we presented. They are supposed to be addressing other demands as well, other issues that will be put before them. If they are able to resolve it, which we are praying for, we also want to take a rest. We don't want to be engaged in what we shouldn't be for now, because strike is not a palatable endeavor for any serious organization. We are praying that we are not pushed back to where we were past 2 days.
All right, now, General Secretary of the Air Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Francis Akinjole, thank you very much for your time and your contribution. Well, on that note, we call it a wrap on the program this week. Many thanks for watching. I am Mary Kanu. Bye for now.
Good day and welcome to your favorite sport program on TV, 360 Sport. I'm Mudashiru Shitu. Today we'll be looking at two important topics, and the first of this topic is on gymnastics, as we look at the development of gymnastics in Nigeria. Joining me to talk about this interesting sport is Mrs. Omowumi Olaleye. Beyond the fact that she is the Southwest rep of the Board of Gymnastics Federation of Nigeria, she's also a businesswoman and someone that's devoted her time in developing talent and also developing infrastructures. It's good to have you, Mrs. Omowumi Olaleye. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mudashiru.
Now let's go straight. Since you've occupied this office as the Southwest rep on the Gymnastics Federation of Nigeria. How has it been so far for you? How has been experience for you?
Well, very well. The experience so far has been very exciting. As you are aware, gymnastic sports is not a popular game in Nigeria. We're just working to, make it popular, and it's a sport that directly affects our youth. We're not just looking at youth going to get medals at just local, international, inter-house sports, but we're looking at them, getting their medals at international games like the FIG and the others. So so far it was challenging, from the beginning, putting everybody together to work on the common goals based on some of the challenges of equipment that we have. But we're glad that we've been able to pull through with this first event coming up, which starts today, the first Southwest gymnastics competition that would have participants from Oyo, Ogun State, Ondo, Lagos, Ekiti, and the likes. So all the gymnasts are right on ground now. They're all excited. They're doing their best. Looking forward to winning the medals, and then we hope that we'll be able to take this to the next level. For the first edition, it's a success. We are glad with that, but we are hopeful that by the second edition, we'll have more turnout. We'll be able to go to grassroots, to fetch fresh talents that will participate in the sport.
Okay, like every other sport in the country, we know there are many challenges. So what are the challenges is gymnastics facing in the country?
Basically, the major challenge we're facing in gymnastics is training equipment. Not all the states that we brought on board have training equipment to practice, to also display. Gymnastics is a luxury sport. I mean, with sophisticated equipment. You cannot practice gymnastics on normal floor. It requires a specification, a type of defined floor, and that's it's quite pricey. It is expensive. So having the right training equipment is a big issue, but we are hopeful that by the time we start this competition and we see the turnout, the improvement, we'll be able to get support, across board to assist us in building this game, to give it the relevant publicity which is required to take it to the next level. So about sourcing for talent, yes, we have a lot of talent in this country. We have a lot. The children are excited, they are gifted, they have the potential, the flexibility, the skills to be a professional gymnast is inborn in a lot of the talent that we discover. So we only need to, bring out this the skill, give them the required professional tutelage, able to put it to the best use for local gains and international gains as well.
Do parents still encourage? Because in the past, we have reports where parents do not allow their kids to participate in gymnastics for several reasons. Have there been a change towards that? Or have there been more kids participating in gymnastics?
Quite interestingly, right. I think parents are now more exposed than before. All right. We've had events where, parents even accompany their children, their wards to the sponsorship. So parents are also looking for a way whereby their children's talent can be discovered. It's not just, entertaining unnecessary fear. We've had them even assign wards, to come to the events alongside their wards. In Nigeria now, gymnastics is now popular in private schools. But what about the public institutions? The public institutions too need a platform whereby they can also shine, they can showcase their talent, they can, participate. And so far, we've not had any issue of parents not forthcoming or willing to put in their words. Once they know that it's a sport, and then their children, their wards have the potential to actually excel in that kind of field, they're willing to give their support, their bids, 100%.
Okay,
I
now
mean, my take on that.
Okay, interesting. And we know that from report and from every event we've been going to, we've seen influx of young lads joining gymnastics. Now, before I ask you the last question, let's a bit focus on the tournament going on. You said we have the Southwest, we have 59 athletes have enrolled according to a report we have in front of us here. What is the purpose at the end of the day? What's the purpose for these athletes? After, are you saying that at the end of the day, the Southwest region will be better off in gymnastics than other regions? So what's the purpose of the tournament?
Okay, right. So the purpose of the tournament is to bring all our gymnasts all together, under one platform, competing against one another, discovering their strengths, and taking lessons. It's not just feeling in your own locality that you are the champion. You are also competing against other participants to see, how best you are, how best you've taken your training levels to. And then, any sporting activities is about consistency and how well have you been able to master the skills which you've been trained over time. So these are the reasons why we organize this event. We need to do our own in-house house cleaning, to be sure that all our gymnasts, have the required skills, they have the required competence to enable them compete against other people. I mean, it's different when you are operating locally than when you are in the international or the closed door games. You're competing against others. Somebody that has been trained by a different coach, bringing different skills, different requirements and resources together, testing your resilience and your energy. So it is important that we put this game together to ensure that we are in the front burner, all right? And then to also encourage the young ones that are coming on board. The young ones also, when they see that there's a platform that enables them to showcase their skills, it's pushing them, it's building the interest in the games. And that's what we intend to achieve. Gymnastics has a lot of medals, unlike other games that is just one medals. So it will also enable us to test your skills in each of the games in gymnastics, whether your strength is in artistic or your strength is in aerobics or any other of the halves of gymnastics games. So basically, that is why we have this events, for me, I am looking at, having our young gymnasts participate at the international level. That's a major focus. And, you can't just push them out there without ensuring that they have what it takes to compete.
Okay. Yeah, we apologize for that, but we know we will be bringing you more updates on gymnastics. We just finished talking with the Southwest representative on the board of Gymnastics Federation, Omonwumi Olalere, who has given us a lot of insight about what gymnastics is about in the country. And we'll go on this quick break. When we come back, we'll be having the chairman of Osun State Table Tennis Association, who is also organizing a memorial table tennis event in Osun State. He was going to tell us why he decided to sponsor a table tennis event. Don't go away. It's still 360 Sport. Yeah, welcome back. We go straight to Osun State, where we have the chairman of Osun State Table Tennis Association, talking about Ayodeji Alabi, who has been ensuring that Osun State is among the states when it comes to table tennis in the country. We know we have Lagos State heading in the southwest when it comes to table tennis, but Osun State is also doing so well to have this. So it's good to have you on the show, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Let's go straight to business as we look at, since you've resumed office as the Osun State Table Tennis Association chairman, What are the challenges you've been facing, and how much have you done to ensure that every other person plays table tennis just like football in Osun State?
Yes, when I took office as the chairman of the Table Tennis Association, I promised the young people that I'm going to build them a befitting playing ground. And what I did is I built them a befitting table tennis hall in the stadium of Osun, which is one of its kind. They've been playing table tennis around Nigeria, but we never have a standing edifice like the one that we have in Osun. That is the first of its kind in Nigeria. It's a standing table tennis edifice named Michael and Felicia Table Tennis Hall.
Okay, now a lot of people want to know where that is located in Osun State, because it seems like Osun State is also a big state in the country. Where exactly is that located in Osun State, and what has been the result of this foundation you've led?
It's inside the stadium, inside the Osun State Stadium.
Okay.
So you cannot miss it. If you enter the stadium, you will see the sign of Michael and Felicia Alabi Table Tennis Hall in the city of Osun.
Okay, thank you very much. So what are the result of this? What do you start noticing since then when it comes to table tennis?
Development of young people playing table tennis. A lot of people are coming now to the stadium to participate in this game of table tennis. If you look around Nigeria, after football, table tennis is the most prominent game that is widely known around Nigeria.
Now, let's take it back a bit home in Osun State. And what are the challenges you've noticed in your efforts to ensure that table tennis is growing in Osun State? What are the challenges? Because, you know, it seems this is a self-sponsored event, and also a self-sponsored complex, and everything you've been doing has been from your pocket. So what are the challenges that Osun State people are facing when it comes to sport development and table tennis?
The challenges are so prominent because, like I know, the government cannot do it alone. That is why I embark on it. So that the support now that we're having from the government is tremendous. So the challenges is quite simple because a whole lot of people are now bringing their kids to participate in the game of table tennis. But what we are doing is revolutionizing the game so the parents can release their children to come and participate in these games.
Okay, now we are told from our report that this is a national event. Who are you expecting?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, who are you expecting based on the last one last year? What are the products? What did you achieve as a result of the gathering of all table tennis players across Nigeria?
Yeah, what we are expecting right now, because last year we did the same tournament. This is the third year. This is the third edition of the tournament. Last year we had 17 states participating in this tournament, but this year we're having 36 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, which is the FCT. So all Nigerians are coming, and the best players of table tennis are coming to participate in this tournament. Last year, some people they scolded us for not inviting them. That is why we said, you know what, this year we're inviting the whole federation. So the best players are coming. The first, the second, the third player, the fourth, number one, number two, number three players in the federation are coming to participate in this tournament. Except Aruna Kodri is not coming, but every other players, the best players are coming for this tournament.
Okay, will this result in having more state players from Osun State? Are we saying the next youth games and the next National Sport Festival, Osun State will be among the best when it comes to ranking in Nigerian table tennis? Is that the target, or you're just looking at all the whole country coming together, or you are still hoping that in the next few years, Osun State will be one of the best states in Nigeria in terms of table tennis?
That's the purpose. That's the purpose, that every time we go out to play table tennis in Nigeria, we want every of the available tournament to be won by the Osun State indigent. Every tournament across Nigeria to be won by Osun.
So my question, are we going to see the effect of this tournament in Osun State when it comes to the National Sport Festival and the Youth Games? You said that is the target, but since the tournament has been going on, what has been the effect? And lastly, the government, since they know you've been doing this as the chairman of the association, what support have been coming from the government in regards to this?
Oh, the government is so incredible. They've supported us. They've even contributed their van to transport the players from every part of Nigeria to Osun State, so that they've contributed immensely. So the governor right now is a lover of sport, so that he's been contributing a lot.
So now, lastly on the show, I'm sure that a lot of people are already thinking of trying to be a table tennis player and is in Osun State. So what makes this tournament different? Because I know there are many other tournaments apart from the one in Lagos. There's the one in Abuja, the ASO table tennis tournament. There's this tournament. There's also the one in Lagos, that ASO Joba table tennis tournament. And ASO Joba is the longest table tennis event almost in West Africa, according to report. Is this going to be just for a short period, or we're going to see 10 years anniversary of this tournament? And what makes this tournament special?
You see, what we're trying to do is, you see, for anybody that plays this game, either going to China or going to Australia or going to England to play the table tennis, there's nothing unique about it. The uniqueness of the game for those people that goes all over those places to play the game is because of the prize money. If we can provide enough prize money for the people of China or England or America, they will come to the state of Osun to play. That is the goal. This is not just a 3-year anniversary. It's going to be a long-standing thing. Like I said, last year we had 17 states. This year we have 36 states at the FCT. Next year is going to be our international game. That's when the National Table Tennis Federation saw what we were doing last year. That is when they decided that, you know what, this would be a national tournament. Because last year, the prize money was so good, everybody that participated got money. Everyone that came to the game got money. They took money home. We provide accommodation, we provide security, we provide feeding in the morning and in the evening. None of the tournament ever done that. Right now, as we speak, every athlete that are coming have been placed in their hotel. They know where to go. All the hotels in the surrounding town have been taken over by us. So this tournament is not just a 3-month tournament or a 3 years tournament. It's going to go into the international.
Okay.
Because like I said, if you go to China to play table tennis, you are playing for the money. So the money is going to be available for at the state of Osun for anybody to come around and play the game of table tennis.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Next year too, we are opening a table tennis place that every of the athletes that will be coming, we have to stay in the place that we created. Okay. We're not going to be using any hotel. We're going to create our own place, our own camp, that everybody that comes to play table tennis will stay in that camp.
Yeah, thank you very much for supporting table tennis. I'm sure you know that your name will also be written in times when we'll talk about development of table tennis in Nigeria. We know we have the Molade Okoya and late Modale Okoya. Now we are having another Ayodeji Alabi who has done so well for table tennis. We thank you for all what you've done for the sport. Yet, and this is how we call it a wrap on today's program. Thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us, we spoke earlier with the Southwest representative of the Gymnastic Federation of Nigeria, Omowumi Olalere, who has done so well for the development of gymnastics in the country. Just right now, we finished also talking with Mr. Alabi, Ayodeji Alabi, who is the chairman of Osun State Table Tennis Association. And that's all we call a wrap on today's program. Thanks for joining us. Same time next week, we'll be giving you all what you need to know in the world of sport. Bye, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues. Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DG360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DG360, dissecting the issues.
Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to another edition of What's Your Take? My name is Dayo Akintobi. Happy Eid al-Fitr to all our Muslim faithful across Nigeria and across the world. Maybe a season of peace and prosperity for all of us. All right, as you know, we every time on this show take a look at the big stories that made the headlines the previous week, and joining me to do that is my trusty sidekick and newscaster Yetunde Afolabi. Yetunde, how are you this morning?
Morning, Dayo. I'm very well, thank you.
And how are you enjoying the long weekend and another holiday?
The weekend was fantastic.
Ah, okay, lovely. Well, have you seen any new Naira notes of late? I know the ATM machines are dispensing now, but all they're giving are the old notes. Whatever happened to the new notes? Do they exist?
Unfortunately, I haven't seen any new notes for the past over a month.
Nobody has, actually. So one is starting to wonder if they're a mirage or a phantom, or if someday they will begin to come out somewhere and we'll begin to see them. Anyway, suffice it to say, at least we're getting some cash now. So commerce is rolling again and Nigerians can breathe easy. So we're happy about that. Now there's this Sudan crisis in which we're hearing Nigeria is trying to evacuate 5,500 Nigerian students stranded in Sudan. And we'll talk about that conflict with our guests later in the show. But what was amazing to me when I heard that there could be as many as 30,000 Nigerian students in Sudan. And I wondered why are Nigerians Sudan of all places? How about our own educational system in Nigeria? Why are there Sudanese people coming to school here in Nigeria? Why are so many Nigerians? And somebody told me, they said, well, in Sudan, a 4-year degree course lasts for 4 years. But in Nigeria, a 4-year degree course can take 10 years. So that's good enough reason to run somewhere else. And I said, okay, run somewhere else. But Sudan, I can understand. The UK, I can understand. Then they said, well, Sudan actually has a very formidable and robust educational system that even had its first university even before UI, which is Nigeria's first educational establishment. And that people like even Lamido Sanusi, the former CBN governor, actually went to school in Sudan. And so we shouldn't underestimate the ability of the Sudanese educational system to produce substantive graduates. All right, so having said that, and the last on a light note issue this morning before we take a deep dive into the headlines, is that I saw on Twitter yesterday that President Buhari and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo are now catching cruise, whatever that means to the Twitter youth. They say they are lame ducks. They're in the lame duck season, which means this is a time when their tenure is winding down. They're not doing much anymore. They're just cruising to the finish line and evaluating how good their tenure has been or how bad their tenure has been, whatever the case may be. So, like our leaders, let us all also learn how to catch some cruise, whatever that may mean, and let us continue to do all the right things that bring progress and development to Nigeria. All right, having said that, let me hand over to Yetunde to read the headlines that we're going to be analyzing with our guest. Then after that, we'll take a quick break, and I will introduce our guest and we'll take a deep dive into the issues. Over to you, Yetunde.
President Buhari has asked Nigerians for forgiveness if he hurt them. The president said he can't wait to go home and will stay as far away from Abuja so as not to distract the Tinubu government. He went on to say that nothing will stop the May 29 handover and thank Nigerians for tolerating him throughout his tenure. He said he is pleased to have served as President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. 2. Ahead of transition in 25 days, President-elect Tinubu returns home to confront challenges of zoning of National Assembly leadership, formation of cabinet, petrol subsidy, social cohesion, healing process, and tribunal cases. 3. Suspended Adamawa Rec on the run. In the aftermath of his unlawful declaration of a winner of the governorship election, the Rec was reportedly moved to Abuja, from whence he vanished into thin air. INEC is calling for his prosecution. And last, Sudan. Nigerian government working round the clock to evacuate stranded Nigerians in Sudan. The government is evacuating 5,500 Nigerian students by road through Ethiopia as fighting intensifies. Sudan's President Omar al-Bashir was overthrown in 2019 by a military coup. The two generals who toppled his government are now at each other's throats over who controls the center, and in the escalating civil war, hundreds have been killed, thousands injured, and many more displaced. Over to you, Dio.
Thank you, Yetunde. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by a guest in the studio who will analyze all of those headlines and kind of try to make Nigerians understand a bit better what is going on in our backyards. Stay with us, don't go away. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Joining me in the studio to give his opinion or his take on those major headlines that Yetunde read out to us before the break is Bayo Banjo. Bayo is an engineer. He is a legal mind and a social critic. Bayo has been around for quite a while, and he is known to speak his mind, and he's very blunt, and he addresses issues from very logical perspectives. Bayo, welcome to the show. Let me ask you a quick question before we get into the meat of the matter. I noticed that you're an engineer and you're also a lawyer. Those seem like very, well, you have a legal education. I
have a law degree.
A law degree.
Yes.
How do you marry electrical engineering with law? They seem like very divergent fields.
Well, the thing is that if you ever want to try and analyze social conduct, law is actually the foundation by which all human beings interact. So let's put it, the philosophy of how people interact together is controlled by law. And as things change, or as the need arises, governments or the people introduce new laws to either get rid of some, to remedy some bad thing that has occurred in the environment. In the old days, laws could be classified as cultural values.
Okay.
You follow your cultural values, which are like the laws that have been there before man started making their own laws.
So in a nutshell, the laws are the rules by which we all agree to live by.
Let's put it this way: if you study law, you begin to understand why lawyers call themselves learned. And one should be very, I would say, apprehensive towards a lawyer, because he is trained to overlook what is right or wrong or moral in preference to what is the law. So primarily a lawyer will follow the law.
And not necessarily what is right or
wrong. Well, it's right or wrong. He will follow the law.
Interesting. All right, let's get into the meat of today's matter. The first issue I want to talk to you about, Bayo, is this apology that President Buhari has tendered. He said he apologizes if he has hurt anyone, and he thanked us for tolerating him over the last 8 years. Bayo, did the president hurt you? And if not, what does his apology say about the impact of his tenure on the average Nigerian?
Well, to me, objectively, if we look at a lot of the things he has achieved quite a lot. I mean, particularly in legislative reform. He has passed a lot of laws that are now relevant. And remember, society generally is founded on the laws. Whether we obey or acknowledge or carry out those laws
is a different matter.
Is a different matter, but at least he did that. We can see a lot of infrastructural development. Unfortunately, for where I believe he lacked was in the issue of security, in the sense that he allowed the social media to create a perception of security collapse. I mean, for instance, my pastime, I bike. I drive around Nigeria, and I mean, 6 years ago on one of our trips, we realized that for instance, the herdsmen issue is phantom. It doesn't exist, right? The only place I've heard them really complain of herdsmen is probably in Benue State.
So are you saying the social media perception is inaccurate?
Yeah, I mean, I believe technically what has happened is journalists have technically let us down. I once spoke to some journalists and a group, and I told them that you are the what they call the guardian of democracy. Without you, without exposing what is bad, democracy will just go crazy, which it has done, by the way. And the same thing with everything. The journalist is supposed... Now what social media does is made every Funcho, Chuka, and Yusuf behave as journalists. And as such, all the ethics of being in a position to gather information and release it have gone.
Are you advocating social media regulation?
Of course. In fact, I personally, before Oshibajo took office, when he was elected, I personally told him that we need what we call small claims courts.
We have one.
Vast, that will handle the traffic of what we call slander and defamation, which now we call fake news. But in those days, we used to call it slander and defamation. Because the cost, what it's costing the country, both morally and socially, in trying to negate what social media has done, is in billions. In fact, it may lead to a social collapse.
But we have laws on the books against slander and defamation already, and there are penalties for such
offenses. But the procedure is so cumbersome
and expensive.
And expensive that it's not followed. That's why I mean you need like the small claims model. I mean, even down to the point is, why are you reposting a post if you don't know it is true? You see, we can hide behind this weird perception of freedom of speech, which I think is very weird. Because it contradicts defamation and slander. Yeah. I mean, and if you notice, that one particular country that is going on by leaps and bounds has a full control of their social media. And that goes even with countries like Dubai and whatever. They monitor it because they know the damage it can
do, the potential it has to create havoc.
Yeah, so to me that I feel was the failings of the last administration. But in terms of performance in infrastructure and whatever, passing of new legislation, he did very, very well.
So what do you think his apology was intended to achieve then?
Well,
or is he second-guessing his own achievements, which you believe he did?
Well, you see, the most of the social media, well, if you notice, they all went dead once they realized he's going, right? Just to show you that once it was established who is going to, whatever, everybody sort of like now switches over to the
incoming administration.
Administration. But you see, the point is this: we should stop trying to adopt these funny models from the West. I mean, we all learnt in secondary school or in social life, you don't walk up to somebody twice your size and insult him. You're going to get hit. I mean, there's not an issue of this is the law, this one has his rights. Yeah. I don't walk into a Catholic church and abuse the Virgin Mary and expect to get out alive. The same entering a mosque.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and then you claim what, freedom of speech?
No.
I mean, so
No.
a responsible government
Yeah.
should realize the dangers of this medium.
Yes.
I mean, it has virtually wiped out the journalist who is trained to analyze information. Even the most valuable of all the journalists, an investigative journalist, they've been technically wiped out for relevance.
Yes, indeed.
You know.
All right.
So
Okay. All right.
As far as I'm concerned, Buhari hasn't hurt anyone.
Okay. All right. I know a lot of people will beg to disagree with you, but hey, that's why we're here, is to render opinion. And opinion is free. Facts are sacred. All right. So let's look at the next issue. Tinubu returns home amid a whole bunch of burdens on his shoulders, from tribunal cases, social cohesion, healing wounds, issues of petrol subsidy he has to address as soon as he takes office. There's so much on his plate. Is it not a over-heavy caseload for an incoming administration with everything that's waiting for it? Matter of fact, I would expect that anybody would run away right now. If President Buhari is running away, say, I'm glad to be dumping this in somebody else's lap. Why would anyone want to take this job at a time like this when there's so much to be attended to?
Well, if you know the person involved, he has always faced challenges. I mean, people forget what he went through when he was trying to defend democracy. I mean, even down to putting roadblocks on Third Mainland Bridge. You know, he has been ready to take on
powers and principalities.
Yes, for what is right. No matter what you think about him, let's think about it. At the time when he was a senator, and you had the what's it called, June 12th.
Yes.
There was no real profit to be made out of his fighting, his supporting Nadeko and all that. There was no profit to be made out of it, unless he was looking down in the future. But that really is the type of person he is. He's dogged. And I used to make a statement among my friends. He's the best fighter I've seen outside the military. Yeah, and he possesses. Normally, in third world countries, you possess usually a physical attribute that allows you to suppress or fool your enemies. Tinubu, he looks small and feeble.
Yes, he does.
Physically small and feeble. In fact, you would think he's ready to croak in the next few months. But I mean, he's been like that since 2000. But his thinking is very strange. If you see what he's done in Lagos State, I mean, he has entrenched the institutions, and he's known for putting competent people in charge.
So you have no qualms about the fact that he can deal with all the issues?
Well, I pity what he is, but again, I believe that the issues will just continue if you don't put social media under control.
Do you think he has the temerity to try to do that?
Well, if he doesn't, he's going to ride his
a
journey.
A whirlwind.
A whirlwind. The journey is going to get very, very, very difficult. The problem I find is that, and of course, he's a realist. I mean, he realized that the democracy in its present state is all about money. So as we can see, he had assembled a war chest of sorts to enable him, because we have to be realistic, it's all about money. When Clinton was fighting Obama to become the representative of the Democratic Party, they judged who would win by who had the largest war chest, you know. And that's reality. I mean, I personally believe if Nigeria wants to progress, we first have to get rid of democracy of craze. It has never worked. It always leads. I mean, the longest democracy we've ever had in history of mankind is the first part of the Roman Empire. And even after that, they had to change back to the emperor system. And as Fela rightly pointed out, which we don't want to to acknowledge. It's a demonstration of craze. And I ask you, show me one democracy, large democracy, that does not show an element of absolute craze.
All right.
That's the way I look at it.
Okay, so Bayo is giving the incoming administration a thumbs up in the belief that the president-elect is the right person and has the right attributes to deal with the issues awaiting him in office. Well, we wait and see. We wish him all the best, and we look forward to a season of prosperity and peace upcoming in Nigeria when the new administration is sworn in. All right, let's dig into the next story as we're fast running out of time. Bayo, what happened in Adamawa? The wreck is on the lam. he has vanished into thin air after this unlawful act that he perpetrated. Was that an issue of corruption, an issue of coercion, or is there a more sinister plot at play in Adamawa, in INEC, in the various political interests?
Well, obviously, in this environment of corruption, why such a thing could happen is because we have ignored remedies. So now people feel they can loot the coffers, they can make statements like this. And what is the remedy? Do they actually go to jail? Are they actually going to be punished? I mean, a false statement like this, if we had a culture of people answering to the crimes they do, I don't think he would have had the guts to do something like this. Because as a result of that, there are probably a number of lives that were lost in the whole fracas of doing a fake announcement.
Yes.
But the question one should ask is, what induced him to do that?
Yes, that's what I said. Could it have been that?
We can only speculate.
2 billion.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is social media again.
Speculation.
I mean, why can't an investigative journalist, investigate? I mean, the guy must put the money somewhere. If he was bribed, he must have put the largesse somewhere.
Yeah.
And particularly with this withdrawal of currency, how exactly was he paid this 2 billion? So we have to bring remedies for it. I mean, many years ago, I suggested a remedy to corruption.
Which was?
Well, it's very simple. You have to give the incentive for prosecution. Mm-hmm. So what I suggested, you can probably Google it, was that in law, you should allow what's called private prosecution for criminal matters, which is available already.
Okay.
The attorney generals at all levels can allow a private individual to institute a criminal proceeding. Then you pass a law that allows 10% of the spoils
to go to
be shared in a ratio of 7% to the legal prosecuting team and 3% to the whistleblower.
Doesn't that give an incentive for people to now start making up stuff against others?
Yeah, but of course there'll be penalties for that. Defamation, slander, wrong. You put that in the law, but you need an incentive for people to prosecute.
Okay.
You see, and the beauty of it is that it's self-correcting.
Yes.
Like, for instance, once a whistleblower knows that it's 3% he will get,
yes.
From day one, the secretaries of all governors will be recording all the wrong things that they are doing. We'll just keep it, whether it takes 10 years or whatever. I mean, if you remove limitations on stealing and whatever, then the lawyers, just like you have accountants who make it their business to go to a company and say, I'll examine your bank statement, I will make 10% of all the errors I recover there. Likewise, you find law firms going after everybody that is showing wealth that they cannot account for.
I've always said follow the money.
Yeah, follow the money. Yeah. So without that incentive, I don't see, and you see, you can't bribe in that situation, because I give an example. If you declare 2 billion has been wrongly appropriated, and you manage to bribe the judge, and the judge gives one judgment, so what? The 2 million has to be accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
So it means somebody can now issue it another case to say that's the way that judge looked at it, but we haven't accounted for that to be. So we have to prepare what they call methods that are self-driven. appeal to greed and the normal natural instincts of people. So you'll have thief chasing thief, under using the law, and corruption will go down. Then, of course, we have to, I think, at this stage, introduce what has made China
capital punishment for stealing.
For public corruption, public officers corruption.
All right, Bayo, thank you. Well, let's talk. We're running fast out of time. I would love to continue with this, but we have just one more story and like 2 minutes to cover it. The situation in Sudan. I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. Word is that this is a proxy fight between the U.S. and Russia, just like in Ukraine. But we are yesterday mentioned in the news that there are two generals fighting for control after they deposed the democratically elected president. Bottom line is it's affecting Nigerians and many other indigents who are studying and living in Sudan. So our government now is trying to evacuate our students. What's the real story in Sudan?
Well, generally,
in 2 minutes, so they're already talking.
Okay, I just say all conflicts generally are over resources.
Okay.
Right, and whether they're encouraged by foreign powers, you must remember that war is the most profitable business known to man. Right.
So people will expend human lives and property.
Yeah, because,
and all that
so it is. For instance, an arms dealer will like to encourage war because he can sell a gun that maybe was $100. He can sell it for $500 like that. Refugees, they can embezzle all the money is allocated. War is just so profitable. I mean, it beats the drug business.
So there are people who are so callous that for the profit motive, they will allow hundreds and millions
of people
to be killed.
It depends on how you're brought up. I mean, everyone's going to die someday or the other. So the way these people, I would say, look at it is profit, profit, profit. I mean, the guys that are dying, they're going to die anyway. Maybe it's not now.
That sounds rather cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's cool, but that's how the world is. So when you say Russia-Ukraine proxy war, usually the U.S., whose main export is weapons anyway.
Yes.
Consequently, they need to create a market, I suppose.
Yeah, but the word on the street is that Russia wants to build a military base in Sudan to have control of the Red Sea and this and that. And U.S. doesn't want that. So U.S. is backing one of the generals. Russia is backing the other general. And so basically, it's U.S. and Russia fighting each other through these generals.
Yeah, but yes, you could say that is a contributing factor. But by and large, the main factor is war is profitable. Everybody wants, those who benefit from wars want wars, right? Whatever the excuses are still secondary. That's the primary. Okay, now you can come on to they want to build a military base. Yes, okay. It's very sad, but that's what goes on when you can't understand what kind of fake news you are given, what kind of impressions are created.
And unfortunately, Sudan is the latest victim in this, and unfortunately, it's having collateral damage on so many other people's lives and all that. So we hope this war machine that is profit motivated will find other avenues to make their money and not begin to sacrifice human lives. All right, that's the much we can take today on What's Your Take. It's been a very interesting time with Bayo Banjo, engineer, legal mind, and social critic. I wish we got to have you back again sometime, Bayo, because there's just not enough time to talk about all these issues because you have very interesting perspectives on social issues. So, boy, what I'm going to try and do is talk to our producer about giving us a 1 hour episode, 1 hour schedule at a time when I can have you back when we can explicate a lot more issues. Thank you so much for coming. We really enjoyed you today, and I'm sure our audience also loved listening to you.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you all for watching. My name is Dayo Akintobi. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time. Have a great day and a super week ahead.
there and welcome to the program. I am Folashade Ogrinde. We are barely into the second quarter of 2023, but it is clear that all is not well with the country's economic standing. The nation's debt stock of 44.06 trillion naira took the spotlight after the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, disclosed that Nigeria has secured a World Bank facility worth $800 million. She said it's the first tranche of palliatives to be disbursed through cash transfers to about 50 million Nigerians who belong to the most vulnerable category in the society. The World Bank's report paints a grimmer picture as a global lending body disclosed in a report that Nigeria spent 96.3% of its 2022 revenue on debt servicing. So what is the future of Nigeria's economy, and why is the government still borrowing? For these answers, Obinaya Urapa, economic expert, joins me now. Thank you, as always, for your time. Now, does it make economic sense to borrow $800 million in order to fund subsidy palliatives?
Straight up, I don't think so. Reason being that we've had experiences in the past. COVID-19 is a classic example. I am an entrepreneurship advocate and expert. And what do I recommend? I recommend that people need to have their capacity built before you give them money. The question analysts are asking is, who determined the 10 million names in the Nigerian conditional register? Who determined who is poor? And where are these people? Well, the Minister for Finance says that these people have already been determined, identified, and that a subsidy will be given to them. Now, we're talking about $800 million. My argument has been, why don't you give $1 million per local government area? There are 774 local government areas. Why don't you have a committee formed and let the committee determine how the money would be used? Form a cooperative, sink a borehole, find out what is in every community, find a market for it, generate income, and then you can give the profit to the people. Why do we continue to share? And then if we haven't borrowed this money, incidentally, I hear we borrowed it, why should we even borrow at all? So that's my submission. I do not think it makes economic sense, especially because a new government is coming. Why the rush to borrow ahead of the new government? Now, all other arguments around the subsidy and the refineries are the other things I would expect we'll have a discussion on this program.
Now, the loan was hinged on concessional financing to be paid in installments for 25 years. What do you make of this?
So we're borrowing for our children to pay back. Now, my submission actually is that we have enough things in Nigeria for consumption. So you hear that salaries have been paid up to date. What I suspect is that we have garnered so much debts and used the debts for consumption. And then we have a lot of capital flights, illicit cash flows out of the country. We need to investigate it. This government came into being on a tripod: economy, anti-corruption, and security. To what extent have we achieved those objectives? We need to ask those questions. So if you link it to the economy, then you would understand that we've not done very well with debt financing. We need to ask the government to give us a report on the infrastructure that has been built. Yes, East-West Road is being revived. We have the second Niger Bridge. We have a few power infrastructure being built. We've seen Minister Fashola on the road, checking road construction going on, and a few other things. But we still believe that much needs to be desired.
Now, despite criticism, the federal government has repeatedly defended itself. But speaking of solutions now, what other avenue do you think the federal government should have explored in terms of revenue?
I strongly believe that we have not sweated our resources. There's a document I'll call your attention to, Folashade. It's called One Local Government, One Product. That document is a 24-page A4 paper, if we print it out, sitting in the Small Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN. Right from the time of Dupe Adelaja to the point where you have Wale Fasonya now as Director General. I would submit to you as an entrepreneurship expert playing in that ecosystem
that document says that every local government area in Nigeria has at least one commodity she has comparative advantage on. To what extent have we sweated it? So as I sit here, I have tried to experiment on the entrepreneurship I teach. So if you go to Zuba, fruit and vegetable market, you probably see 2 shops that our team owns there. And every day, even if you brought in 100 J5, that pickups load of plantain from Edo State, and you load them in Zuba, fruit and vegetable market, you will sell all of them off. And a J5 of plantain for 5 dozens is 540 heads of plantain. Now imagine that you have 2 million private schools in Nigeria that wear belts and underwear, singlets, and all of that. Have we tried to exploit the cotton market? Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria introduced the Anchor Borrowers Program. To what extent have we sweated that particular intervention? The Nassau Microfinance Bank introduced 10 million naira for each MSME that will go through training. My firm, Grand Rise International Limited, is an EDI, Enterprise Development Institution. So we're supposed to train them, build their capacity, they do business plans, get financing, and then they're supposed to take advantage of what is found in their communities. Then if you're talking about access to markets, it's talking about the OLOP document. How many Nigerians consume what is produced in Nigeria? So if you explore all of that, the government really needs to go back to what she has done herself. There was the MSME clinic that was driven and led by the vice president, no mean personality than the vice president himself, leading the Smedan crew and Bank of Industry. And so we saw trader money, market money, and all of those interventions. To what extent have we done M&E? And then we sit back and we hear that some persons are paid 30,000 naira per month. What exactly do they do? Now, to what extent have we built the capacity of these persons to be able to exploit resources found in country? So when you heard the former President Donald Trump of America saying America first, have we also done Nigeria first? And in the face of the African Continental Free Trade Area, have we explored the things that will sell to the other over 50 countries in Africa? So these are questions I need to ask. 208 million Nigerians. How many of us consume made in Nigeria? We closed the border at some point. What came out of that? Then we came up with the Naira redesign. What impact did it have on the economy? Whose idea was it to shut everyone out of cash in a cash-dependent economy? As much as I believe that we should go digital, is there no time frame for implementation? My idea is just asking questions. I don't have too many answers for you, my dear.
Now, this new administration will definitely ease out by May the 29th, and the finance minister disclosed that the next administration may inherit a total debt stock of about 77 trillion naira. And usually a practice when a new administration comes in, it's usually a practice that, they begin to, play back the challenges of the former administration and say, okay, this is the reason why we're not able to implement this. So do you think this would play out when the new administration comes in terms of the economy now?
Now, we've formed a transition committee for Oshode. Why don't you just wait and sit with this transition committee? Now, by the time the budget cycle for 2023 is over, we would have moved up to 77 trillion, and this by the DMO, Debt Management Office. Now we're going to hand over a debt to this new administration. And then we're talking about $800 million extra to be borrowed on top of the 77 trillion. And how did we arrive at the 77 trillion? We continuously, from 2015, kept borrowing and funding a lot of consumption. And then we also did not monitor enough of the anti-corruption. And then we had to deal with insecurity. And then I'm asking the question, how much handshake happened between the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, the private sector, with the government? And then to what extent did we actually do a SWOT to say what are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to ensure that we did not pile up this much debt? So we're going to hand over to this new government. But some form of comfort that I have is that the new government that's coming, I believe, would have more technocrats who would sit down and ask the right questions. Like Chinua Achebe said, if you don't know where the rain started beating, you will not know where it stopped. What led us here? In 2015, in case we have forgotten, the dollar was exchanged, Naira was exchanging to the dollar at 157 Naira to a dollar. what policy led us to 520 naira to $1 in few months? We decided to make a policy that stopped people from paying in money into their domiciliary accounts. What was the justification for that? Yes, you can say you are doing anti-corruption, you want to stop people who stockpile monies in their ceilings, in the farms, and so on, from utilizing such monies. But did we ask what the consequences of that policy was going to be? So you're going to have a new government coming to have to battle with all of this. But if you are going to ask me to advise, I would just say, let whatever this present government has done in the past 8 years go away, and let the new government sit down. And what do I recommend? How did the Asian tigers grow? The Asian tigers were the ones that grew Asia. And what did they do? The buttons, the needles, the threads, and all of that you use in the fashion industry. These persons had small rooms where they employed 2 to 3 persons, and they were able to employ the federal government of Nigeria, and no government at all, if it's America or whichever government, can employ more than 5% to 10% of our population. So out of 208 million people, you have persons, according to the 2014 figures of National Bureau of Statistics and Smedan report, it says we have over 39.2 MSMEs enumerated in Nigeria. And these MSMEs are in the micro, small, and medium enterprises up to nano levels. So can we engage them and make their lives easy? Create an ease of doing business environment, which this government has had as a mantra, that we have ease of doing business. And we came down from doing business index, came from about 141 down to about 71. And then every attempt is made to ensure that we fall below a particular index. Now, I do not think we achieved all of that. So can we look at what this government tried to do, but was not able to do for some challenges that you can actually cut them some slack? Yes, oil sold at a point at $30 a barrel during this government. Now you have the Russia-Ukraine crisis during this government. This government suffered some economic challenges within its pendency. So we can cut them some slack. But that having been said, and we have had an acrimonious election, so I think this government will, first of all, get the heart of the people before asking for their hands. Engage labor, engage the oil workers, engage the pensioners, sit down with the rest of us in the private sector and ask the right questions. We need to leverage technology to run. We need to understand the African Continental Free Trade Area. We need to understand how to engage our different publics, the stakeholders. 3 things: stakeholders mapping, stakeholders engagement, stakeholders management. If this incoming government wants to make a success of her tenure, that is what I advise.
All right, we'll definitely go back to more details about your recommendations for the new administration. But Dr. Urakpa, we'll take a short break here, but the program continues shortly. To stay with us. Welcome back to the program. If you're just joining us, I've been discussing federal government's excess borrowing and its impact on the economy with Dr. Obinaya Urakpa. We're still on standby. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, the World Bank recently disclosed that Nigeria had spent 96.3% of its 2022 revenue on debt servicing, which is, of course, a very big issue. Give us a broader view now of this matter. I mean, a country spending 96.3% out of 100% of its revenue. How serious is the situation?
It's as serious as the same World Bank recommended that you should not spend more than 25% of your revenue. So our revenue to debt servicing ratio has gone to very dangerous heights. So it's a simple answer I'm giving you. It's a panic. We're in panic mode. You cannot earn 100% and use 96.3 to service debts. Is there no other way? So don't we think we should actually go reschedule these debts and renegotiate? And who are we borrowing from? And who did we discuss with before borrowing? And if we borrowed, what did we use the money for? These are hard questions we need to ask. Yeah, but that having been said, we have less than 6 weeks to the new administration May 29. So I'd recommend that once the new government comes on board, they should ask to do exactly what Okonjo-Iweala did some time ago during Obasanjo's regime. Find out all the loans we are owing and whoever we're owing. Go into diplomatic shuttle, sit with them, and please try to take us back to below 25% of revenue to debt servicing ratio. It's not healthy to use 96.3% of your revenue. And what have we been talking about? How much revenue have we generated? The budget is about 21.83 trillion. And about 10 trillion is expected income. And about 12 trillion is expected to be borrowed to fund the budget. I'm talking about 2023 budget. And don't forget, you have domestic debts, public debts domestically. And the danger with these debts is it impacts your efficiency to build infrastructure, to grow your economy, and it affects foreign direct investment. If anyone finds out that you are at risk, it's going to affect their confidence. Investors' confidence is whittled down. It's simple logic.
Now let's talk about inflation rates, which according to the National Bureau of Statistics is currently at 22.04%. That's the third consecutive increase in 2023. It's been a long time we've had this rise in inflation rate. And as a matter of fact, inflation has been, seen a steady increase over the years. For every time the CBN governor speaks about inflation rates, it keeps reassuring Nigerians that, we'll see a deceleration of inflationary pressure. But this is, of course, not what we're experiencing right now. Why do you think the federal government, is assured of a decrease in inflationary rate while the reality of what our economy says is totally different?
Let's call a spade a spade. If you want me to be blunt, I actually suspect that we have printed money. And then some of our policies have not, the timing of some of our policies have been challenging. At most MPC meetings that you see the CBN governor address us, I've had a challenge with the basis points adopted, and then of course all of the parameters for determining what rates that are to be used. Now, as I speak, how many people are actually able to, MSMEs like us, entrepreneurs like us, are able to borrow from commercial banks? Because of the rates of lending that we are experiencing based on what happens at MPC meetings. So let's tell ourselves the truth. The truth of the matter is that inflation is real. I do not think we're producing enough. And it's because of certain basic realities. At a point, the central bank herself intervened in the power sector under Lamido Sanusi and continued by this present governor. So we need to find out how much investment we have made in the power distribution companies. We're talking about the Enugu distribution company, the Port Harcourt electricity distribution company, the Kano ones, and the ones in different places. So we need to find out how much we've invested and how well our investments are doing in the power sector. And to the extent that those investments are performing well, we need to see what the result is in the real sector, where manufacturers need power to be able to produce. How many megawatts is Nigeria producing? And have we explored renewable energy? United Arab Emirates that can have the bragging rights to be one of those that are doing well in the crude oil sector has adverted her minds to renewable energy. So let's call a spade a spade. The inflation is real. And then we introduce the Naira redesign. And then we fix a deadline. Yes, central bank has been talking about it for years. But to what extent has central bank had a handshake with National Rotation Agency and all of the different MDAs that should work together in synergy to ensure that the people are enlightened? It was during this Naira redesign that we discovered that many of our people didn't have bank accounts. And CBN has been preaching the message of financial inclusion for years. So you do not actually blame CBN totally for that, because they've been preaching that message for years. So, but I would have thought that would have given some more time to get our people on board the issue of financial inclusion, get more people to open accounts. I'm excited to see that more POS machines came into use, more, how do I put it, more accounts were opened, more microfinance banks, some names that we've never heard before were announced, you know. But if you want to call a spade, how did we arrive at this juncture? Farmers farm are not able to get into their farms to farm in the first place. And even when they finish farming, are not able to harvest what they have farmed in Benue, in Kaduna, in Zamfara, and all of the places where if it's not kidnapping, it is banditry or armed robbery, and so on and so forth. Insecurity, big challenge. The farmers being able to move their items from Sokoto, onions, to Abuja, where it's to be consumed, or from Kebbi, where you have the rice, where the Anchor Borrowers Program was launched in November 2015 by Minister Al-Duobe and President Muhammadu Buhari. On the basis of that, Lagos State government collaborated with Kebbi State to do the collaboration where you had the lake rice, Lagos and Kebbi, and then you have the cows that should move by the rail infrastructure to Lagos, where over 6,000 cows be consumed within a week or even less than that. So we have our opportunities we've not taken advantage of. And what is the implication of that? We now borrow to fund the budget, and of course we put pressure. There's food crisis, which World Bank has warned us on. We have over 13 million people likely to get into poverty within between now and 2025, according to World Bank reports. No, so a lot of issues we're dealing with, corruption issues, inability to plug certain leakages within government, then issues around insecurity, and then we not being able to even consume what we produce, and then we make a policy to close the borders, and then, of course, we don't have enough rice produced at home under the Anchor Borrowers Program to be consumed here. And then, of course, in Nigeria, the design means that some people who need their cash in a cash-dependent economy are not able to fund inputs for production. A lot of challenges. It's a litany of things that we need to actually recount.
Well, indeed, Dr. Obinaya Urapa, thank you so much for your time and your contribution on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you, Folashade. All the best.
I need to wrap on this week's edition of Money Matters. See you again next time. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Bye for now.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues. Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How in practical terms?
Glad to have you join us on the newsroom. I am Simisola Adigun, and these are trending headlines at this time. President Muhammadu Buhari has asserted that while the All Progressives Congress APC worked hard to retain power in the 2023 elections, the combined opposition were a victim of overconfidence. President Buhari spoke at the State House when he received the Progressives Governors Forum led by the chairman and Kebbi State Governor Atiku Bagudu. The president charged the progressive governors to stick together and openly address issues among themselves. The chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, Abike Dabiri-Erewa, has said that the first batch of evacuees from war-torn Sudan will arrive in the country on board an Air Peace airline on Friday. While giving an update from the presidential villa, Abuja, on the efforts made so far by the federal government to evacuate Nigerians from Sudan, Abike also said more than 3 million Nigerians are living in Sudan and arrangements are being concluded to airlift all Nigerians that have already escaped on their own to safety in other countries neighboring Sudan. Alleged terrorist negotiator Toko Mamo has been denied bail by the Federal High Court in Abuja. The court, in a ruling that was delivered by trial Justice Eyang Eko, said it was persuaded by a counter-affidavit the Department of State Services filed to oppose Mamo's request for bail. Justice Eko held that, among others, Mamo's application was without merit and that the applicant failed to provide sufficient materials to move the court to exercise its discretion in his favor. The World Health Organization, WHO, says COVID-19 deaths have dropped by 95% since the start of the year, but warned that the virus was still on the move. WHO Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus, at a press conference, said that despite the drop in the number of deaths, COVID-19 was here to stay, and countries would have to learn how to manage its ongoing non-emergency effects, including post-COVID conditions or long COVID. Tedros reiterated that the WHO remained hopeful of declaring an end to COVID-19 as a public health emergency of international concern. In business, revenue generation by indigenous energy company Seplat Energy PLC has grown by 37% to $331 million in the first quarter of 2023 compared to $241.8 million in the first quarter of 2022. This was disclosed in its unaudited results for the 3-month ended March 31, 2023, which was filed by the Nigeria Exchange Limited on Thursday. The company's financial performance revealed that gross profit surged by 69% to $198.3 million from 117.3 naira at the margin of 60% compared to 48% in the first 3 months of 2022. Now, at least 12 people have been killed and several injured after Russian forces attacked cities and regions across Ukraine, including the capital, Kyiv, in a series of nighttime air raids. Rescue workers are still searching for survivors hours after the first large-scale assault in months. President Volodymyr Zelensky has issued a statement on Telegram that the Russian terror must face a fair response from Ukraine and the world. In sports, Qatar has been named host of the 2027 Men's Basketball World Cup on Friday, pursuing its reputation for staging major global sports events. This was announced by the International Basketball Federation, FIBA, on Wednesday. Qatar hosted the Men's Football World Cup in November to December and will now stage basketball's showpiece tournament for the first time. All matches will be held at existing venues in the capital, Doha. Now, that's the latest on the newsroom at this time. Do stay on for more stories. Thank you for watching.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic?
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians are saying in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues. The Osun-Osogbo Sacred Grove in Osogbo, Osun State, southwest Nigeria, is one of the last remnants of primary high forest in southern Nigeria. The site, a natural habitat that has been preserved for over 400 years, has served as both a pilgrim point as well as a tourist center for millions of people who visit the site annually to worship and celebrate the Osun goddess that is believed to inhabit the river that runs through the grove, giving the water the ability to heal and grant wishes of its believers.
Osun Grove happened to be a site that we all refer to as a living site. It is a living site just because activities that have been carried out over the years are still performed the way it used to be then. And secondly, it is a site where the worshippers do come to perform every 5th of the day, which means 5 days. They do come. For example, in churches, we go to churches during the week, but on Sunday, we christen it to be, we go to church on Sunday. Likewise, the Muslim goes to mosque on Friday. So despite the fact that the devotees do come interval, but they have a 5-day, which they call Ojose. Aside this, the uniqueness of this site is the name Osogbo was derived from this site. The appellation of the king was derived from this site.
From the entrance, one could feel the tranquility that comes with the well-preserved forest. A little further down, comes another feeling of an elevated being's dwellings. This is the Osun Osogbo Sacred Grove, one of the last sacred forests in Nigeria, along the banks of the Osun River, just outside the city of Osogbo, Osun State, southwest Nigeria. In this forest of 75 hectares of undisturbed areas of land, no residential building is allowed, no killing of any kind of animal, no fishing, no hunting or felling of trees.
Apart the fact that this is 75 hectares of the core zone and 47 hectares of the buffer zone, is one of its kind in sub-Saharan Africa and second UNESCO World Heritage Site in Nigeria. The kind of people or crowd that comes around, one will be marveled why this. But it is a festival and a river that people believes in. Because of the sacredness, you can't cut a tree, you can't fish. And if you are not a devotee, there are certain activities you don't do so that you don't blame yourself.
The one path that cuts right through the grove is lined on either sides with sanctuaries, illustrations of traditional Yoruba deities and primary high forest. Adekunle Olatunji is the curator and site manager of the grove that has existed for over 4 centuries. On a tour of the sacred forest, Olatunji describes how the name Osogbo came about and what the grove stands for.
At Ipoleumu, some kilometers from here is in Iboku. There's an hunter. It's not just an hunter that going to the bush to kill rattle. It's a big hunter that hunts for elephants, bigger animals. In one of his sojourn, then from Ipoleumu looking for where they can get water, they now got to this site. On getting to this site, he was astounded. We were looking for almost a 40 kilometers from here, looking for water, still large water here. So he decided to go back to inform the king. My brother, we are hunting, I got to his place and I saw this river. So the hunter then was Oguntimeyin, while the king then at Ipoleumu is Laroye. So the two of them came down to the site, seeing what they wanted. So they decided to settle down at the bank of the river. So in one of their trying to rent the tent, a tree now fell into the river. And a voice came out of the river saying, Enyoma Daniel, you have broken my time, but 84 kokwa. So everybody the two of them were so shocked. Who is this person? Simultaneously, the spirit now answered, Osogbo Pele, Osogbo brother, Osogbo Pele, Osogbo. That was when they knew they are in Osogbo. Literally meaning Osogbo. So now, they now felt, what is the next thing to do? In Yoruba then, something strange happened. You do divination. During their divination, they wanted to know what's happening. So the Babalawo now said, Osun dwell here. You cannot stay with Osun. So they moved from the bank of the river, moved up. They now built a hut. That hut today is what we call the First Palace. And there's these promises between them. That if we say we should leave this place, as a powerful person, they felt, how will somebody in the river be telling us to leave? So if we are to leave, what will you do for us? And I said, okay, if you are to leave, I will make you prosper. There is no war that will conquer you. Do my bidding, and every year there must be somebody from your lineage to come and bring object of appeasement to me every year.
But the grove wasn't always this beautiful and serene. In fact, there was a time it was completely infested with termites until an Austrian artist, Susan Wenger, and her husband Uli Bayer arrived to save the sacred monument. Wenger devoted some 50 years of her life to preserving the forest, and with the help of local craftsmen in the city, she transformed the sacred grove into a sculptural garden with compelling artworks and objects of habitation. Because of them, This 200 acres is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
When Mama started with the Osun Groves, she started at the area we called Ayedakun. Ayedakun is also part of the groves. Our first two sculptures are still there, where we have Obatala and Yemo. And she did that, you know, not in one place, you know, at the main shrine, Ebu Yamako, and inside the forest there are the sculptures there that she made. And Mama would do the heart with meditating, you know, like communication with the deity before doing any form of art. And Mama got her inspiration, you know, from there because she stayed there for a while.
She was invited to come and see or assist us in treating this termite attack. In doing that, she now fell in love with the culture. So she's so powerful and mystic that if she sleeps, revelations of what she is expected to do for this place will come to her. Then she now felt, for somebody of her status, there's a need for her to have people to work with. Then she now got in touch with the Oba. Then there and then some interested indigenous that were into art then were introduced to her. So that was why they formed what we call a new sacred art movement. With this new sacred art movement, from instruction from her, that's why we have all these structures.
Shaded by a canopy of trees with a flight of stone leading downwards, the inner grove lies within a natural depression, marking the exact spot where the first palace of the founder of Osogbo was located. The ancient palace with its ornate pillars and elegant designs has remained in its original state for decades, and its sacredness upheld for as long as it stands. A short walk away from the palace will take you to the Osun River, which on a normal day looks just like any other river except for the utter stillness that pervades the atmosphere around it and the occasional carving in the midst of its waters. Otherwise called the Herbs of Osun, because according to its devotees, this calm flowing river transcends ordinary water.
Everything about the Osun Grove revolves around this river. It's like the life of this place. You take it away, the entire place becomes lifeless. This is where the history of the grove actually started from. And every year, thousands of devotees of the Osun goddess converge by the bank of this river, where they pray, believing that all of their problems will be solved by the goddess.
If it is just a mere river, why the crowd? If it is just a mere river, why are people taking this water? I'm using this water in context because here we don't have river, we don't have water. Please, we don't have water. Once you are here, you want agbo, apps. People that needed one thing or the other comes here to seek for assistance from Osun goddess. Believing, as I said, it's your faith. Believing he or she will do it for them. Whatever is being taken here is apps, is agbo. If you take it with your faith, be you me, you'll be healed. It has been proven beyond reasonable doubt.
While the grove is the site of Osun's most sacred shrine, many Yoruba deities are also depicted here with sculptures that are centuries old and shrines where their devotees worship. Despite the sanctity attached to it, managing the grove is not without its own challenges.
There's no lumber that will come into this site that will not pray will sleep off 72 hours. So that before we wake up, we would have cut down all the trees. We do have butchers, and despite the native laws that we do use to operate, because here you are not supposed to hunt. If you are caught, you'll be taken to the enforcement agency through the Attache of Osogbo. And because of developmental pressure, as the town grows, you are bound to see people wanting to build closer to the site, thereby giving you problem. You have a challenge, but God is helping us through that native law. That native law, don't cut, don't fish. And aside that, the native law, I will tell you authoritatively, because if all of us goes home, we have night security if they are here. If you eventually decide that you want to catch any fish, you will cook it from now till that kid don't come, it will not done. So you will definitely put yourself into trouble.
Once sparkling and clear and home to a variety of fish, today the sacred river is murky and brown. It is now under constant threat from pollution from waste disposal and other human activities. Another fascinating thing about the Grove is the standalone suspended bridge right at the heart of the forest and just above the Osun River, built some 87 years ago. The bridge has no pillar holding it because they say the Osun goddess forbids it.
One of the unique things to see at the Grove is this suspension bridge. We understand it was built in 1935, commissioned in 1936, and the reason why the bridge was constructed was to enable people around here move goods now, especially palm products, from one end of the bridge to the other. And up till this day, the bridge is standing. It's one bridge a lot of tourists who come to this area love to see.
Despite the gradual fading away of celebrated African culture and tradition, the Osun-Osogbo Sacred Grove is one cultural phenomenon that has not only stood the test of time, but also become a reference point for people from this part of the world. The grove remains more or less pristine, leaving visitors with this sense of peace and a connection to the dwellings of an elevated being and the ancient Yoruba tradition.
There's time for everything. A time to make promises and a time to assess scorecard. What would you want to be remembered for? Promises fulfilled or broken promises? President Buhari's spokesperson, Femi Adesina, recently informed Nigerians that Buhari is leaving Nigeria better than he met it. Buhari is leaving, oh. I beg, I want to ask, was this statement made against the backdrop of the comfort he's enjoying in the presidential villa or against the promises Buhari made in 2015? Anyway, don't blame them. They forget so soon that manifestos are the oil with which the yam of governance is eaten and must not be adulterated. But since they don't adulterate them and don't forget, let's remind additional of Buhari's promises in 2015. Buhari promised to ban political government officials from going abroad for medical treatment. But he himself and most of his ministers, including the president-elect, they japa regularly for medical tourism every now and then. He promised to introduce national gender policy and offer 35% appointment to women. But anyway, instead of 35%, they offer 35 women political appointment. After all, 35, not 35. Boys is scam. Creation of 3 million jobs per annum. At least by 4 years, it would have been 12 million jobs. And in 8 years, 24 million jobs, including employment scheme where 740,000 graduates across the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. Sorry, I forgot they created jobs like kidnapping, banditry, herdsmen invasion of Benue villages. So, after all, Femi might be right. Quite disheartening though. But unemployment in Nigeria today is at about 30% or more from the 18% they met it. Go and verify from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. Apologies to Peter Obi. The revival of our steel industry, Jakuta and Alaja, was at least another promise. But you know they only revive the steel industry in their APC constitution. They also promised creation of social welfare program where a minimum of 5,000 naira will be paid to 25 million poorest of the poor and most vulnerable in Nigeria, including our unemployed graduates. Even though we remember that the VP, Professor Yomi Oshibanjo, they share money for market, CBN gave loan to farmers. Don't ask me if they are paid back. And government has borrowed another $800 million to share, $800 million to share to Nigeria. I will leave you, the listeners, to score them on this one, whether they fulfill the promise. How about the promise of building one of the fastest growing economy in the world with a real GDP growth average of 10% per annum? Well, unfortunately, the country today is one of the poorest countries in the world, with our take-home pay unable to take anybody home, and prices of goods and services are outside the reach of the common man. Anyway, what do detractors like me know? After all, Femi Adesina say Nigeria is better. They also promised to increase our electricity generation, transmission, and distribution to at least 20,000 megawatts within 4 years and an increment of 50,000 megawatts within 8 years, with a view to achieving 24 hours uninterrupted supply. Anyway, I don't talk anything about this one. But it is obvious that Buhari scammed unsuspecting voters, because till now, our total installed capacity is 7,500 megawatts, and we have not been able to distribute more than 5,000 megawatts. Better well, Bros Femi say, we are better off. We hope so. I can't even believe that this government had promised to upgrade all federal-owned hospitals to world-class facilities and increase the number of medical doctors from 19 to 1,000 persons to at least 50 to 1,000 persons, and not only jackpotting for medical tourism as the hospitals are worse off, but they are also struggling to hold down the few medical doctors from jackpotting as a result of poor condition of service, abysmal remuneration, and lack of facility. But really, enough funny. You couldn't increase the numbers you met, yet you are still unable to keep the few ones available. And yet, Femi believes we are ungrateful for saying we are not better off. Anyway, Goodluck Jonathan will be laughing by now. We are all crying. Buhari is leaving. How about the promises of creating 2 million homeowners in their first year in office and then subsequent 1 million homeowners annually? If you ask about promises of making Naira stable at the international market, they will tell you it wasn't Buhari that made the promise, but the party. But they made the Naira at 199 to $1 on the May 25th, 2015. Today, it is hovering between 740 and 745. And our CBN governor is busy chasing a Aboki FS or holding Naira note. Which juju push us into this one chance? Oh, sorry. Bros Femo, no vessel. We are better off. On serious bunch. The unkept promises, plentiful, including amending the constitution to remove immunity for governors and president, providing full disclosure to the media of all government contracts above 100 million naira prior to award and during implementation, creation of commodity board to ensure best practices for selected crops. At least I know that one. I listened to Oshibanjo. Consolidation of INEC to reduce and possibly eliminate electoral malpractices. Even INEC themselves now, they're confused whether they have improved, progress, or retrogress. I'm really trying hard to look at the positive of this government that made Pastor Femi Adesina claim that Buhari has left Nigeria better than he met it. And then I remembered that they passed the Petroleum Industry Act. Even though the implementation is topsy-turvy, they promised to eradicate Boko Haram, though, and bring back our guests. But 9 years after, some of our guests are still in captivity, even though our military men are trying daily to suppress and defeat Boko Haram and the general security with the best they can. I also remember that they built the second Niger bridge and built more railway than the previous government. But the only thing be said, the railway now became so unsafe that it turned into a kidnapping den. May God rest the soul of Nigerians that died, both the military and civilians, for no fault of theirs but the fact that they are Nigerians. I will therefore advocate, as the swearing-in draw closer, the incoming government should not bother to take us on another voyage of rhetorics and promises, and nobody should request me to set agenda for anybody. Let them just start from the party, not just start from the party manifestos, But from the unkept promises of APC and Buhari government that Nigerians subscribed to pre-2015, but ended up as weapon of mass deceit by APC and Buhari. Once they do that, at least we'll start on a good trajectory. That's all for today. Until next week, when we come your way, keep the faith by kindly checking out our various social media platforms shown on your screen for previous episodes. Remember, you can't force peace. Just ensure we all have equal right and justice, and we all have peace. See you next week.
And welcome to another episode on Startups. I am Tamilore Akinkolye. Counterfeit drugs are a deadly problem globally, especially in developing nations where the supply chain security is limited. And this undermines the progress of every individual and nation in achieving the progress of the UN's development goals. To fight the flood of fake pills in Nigeria, Samuel Kwada decides to start up an organization to reduce the rate of counterfeit drugs in the country. Why don't you journey along with me as you get to know more about remedial health?
At Remedial Health, we say we are digitizing the pharmaceutical supply chain in Africa, and we do that in a number of ways. So, for example, we provide software to pharmacies and hospitals for their operations. We help them with their supplies, so they can place orders for items that they need and get it to their stores without lifting a finger. I am Samuel Okwada, CEO, co-founder of Remedial Health.
In Nigeria, many people die as a result of counterfeit drugs. This dire situation has taken the lives of more than 500,000 people in the sub-Saharan region every year. According to Nigeria's drug regulatory body NAFDAC, 267,000 of these deaths are linked to anti-malaria medicine.